Buenos dias, Gunners Collective. Back at it, you already know, like a motherfucking smack addict, right? And as you can tell by today's thumbnail, yes, indeedy, I'm going to write graffiti on the bus. Fuck it, cross it out. Let's get down with it, man. As you can tell by that thumbnail, right there, we're talking about the top 5 prison gangs or prison organizations in California Department of Corrections. Yes, indeed, man. We're talking about the big 5. I know everyone says there's a big 4, and yes, indubitably, there is a big 4. There could be a 5, 6, 7, or 8, actually. But we're going to talk about the top 5. The ones that are making noise, the ones that have been doing it, the ones that have a lot of historia behind what they've been doing in a menudo style, in a direct fashion. Let's get straight into it. So trip out. This is in no particular order. This is just right off the dome piece. So whatever I come with and however I say it, don't feel no type of way. Hey, we're number 1. You know what I mean? So I was scared to each their own. Maybe you're 1, maybe you're 2, maybe you're 1A and 1B. I can't call it like an alcoholic, but what I do know quietly as it's kept, we're going to talk about it. So let's put it out there. So first one that comes to mind, man, at number 5 is the Black Guerrilla family, right? The Black Guerrilla family is not really spoken about too much nowadays. You have a lot of splinter groups with all the Africanos. You got Crips, Bloods, Kumis, which are the 415 Bay Area cats, and just other little subsets like the Muslims, the non-affiliates. You know, a lot of Africanos, at the end of the day, they're all going to band together on a racial aspect if something is to crack on that yarda. But they all got their different political makeups. They all got their different rules and regulations, and they're all going to roll with their own gente. Now, of course, you have down south Cripas that ain't really caring too much about the up north Crips and vice versa, right? Now, I'm not going to say there's some animosity there, some type of haterism, but at the same time, man, in the history, it's been known that these two groups kind of kick it with their own. You'll have the 60s, the 8 Trays, and all them vatos from down south, the Grape Street Watts, Baby Loke Crip, PJ Watts, so on and so forth, the O's. They're going to kick it in their own little carro, whereas you have the ones from the NSGC, Stockton, 44 Gangsters, 4 Trays, Townhomes, and all the other Crip sets, Garden Block from Sacra. They're going to do their own little ramflote thing too and kick back. Everyone's robbing in that 6'4", though, getting their ride on. Of course, the Crip car is the Crip car. It's been around. It's well established. But the Black Guerrilla family is the catalyst for all that. They are the Africanos of old, the Africanos from the old school, more militant, more military-minded, more revolutionary style. You know, founded back in the 50s and 60s, this was the original group for the Africanos to turn to if they needed a helping hand. The ones that fought for their rights, their social status of equality, to get the things that they needed to obtain and the piece of turf that they needed on those yardas to maintain, to have some type of semblance, to have some type of fucking, hey, we're here, vato. So it's getting in that fashion. Hey, I ain't got no problems, brother. You know what I mean? Order the pockets. Trip out. This is how they were getting down, and this is how they did it. Now, the Black Guerrilla family was feared back in them days because these guys, like I said, were very militant. Their mind wasn't only in prison, but they were pushing positive movements on the streets with the Black Panther Party and other parties. So with all these different movements coming into prison, these vatos starting to get established within the California Department of Corrections, as well as other states and the feds, they started this Black Guerrilla family. Now, of course, no one knows how they got their name, and there's been discrepancies on who actually started. People will say that George Jackson started. Other people will say, no, he was part of the Black Panther Party. Whatever the case may be, this is one of the main notorious notoriety, I guess you can give them, guys in that faction. You know, the Black Guerrilla family, you got to give them their respect. There's not as many of them nowadays as there was back in them days, but I'll tell you right now, they're a very, very vicious group. And they're very tactical, man. They're down to handle their business. A lot of people sleep on the Africanos in prison thinking, oh, they're so scattered and they're so disorganized and they're not checking paperwork and this and that. And everyone always has an excuse until it comes crunch time and they're getting knocked flat on their back and they're like, damn, that shit hurt. You know what I mean? I know they don't check paperwork, but they hit hard. Yeah, they do something, humps. Every group has hitters. Every group does something. So the Black Guerrilla coming in at 5, like I said, it's no water, man. It's just the way it is. Number 4, indubitably, man, we're going to talk about the Aryan Brotherhood, right? The Aryan Brotherhood, the brand, several other names, man. We're not going to get too detailed into what they got going on, but let's just say that they started as well in the 60s and 70s. They were very vicious. Now, this group, again, started on the racial tip to preserve their own, to preserve these Woods that got incarcerated, man, that were really not affiliated on the streets. I've met a lot of Woods, man, that bump fucking Mac Dre, bump some Gotos. They're just bumping Burner out there still to this day. But they get locked up. And of course, man, it's a very racially divided prison yard. You have to roll with your people. If you got the white skin, then you got to have that right skin and go over there with your gente peckerwood and do what you do. And they do that, you know, and you can't be mad at that man for fucking doing what he has to do to preserve his safety and security. That is cool. But the brand, the Aryan Brotherhood, was established by vicious, tenacious characters. Guys that were willing to go the extra mile. Very brutal people, you know. There's been several murders that have occurred on the yard, several pegadas that have occurred of the most vicious nature. Most of them have been done by the brand. It's like this group wants to make an example because they are a minority in prison. There's not a lot of white boys like other people think. I think the only yarda I've ever been where they were well established, and I mean they were deep, more so the skinheads in the woods, was Susansville, which is called Susie's House, aka the White House. There seemed to be a lot of white boys placed there, man, and they had it going on. They were controlling that yarda. They were running it to a T and doing their thing. Now, of course, a lot of people on online, YouTube, whatever the case may be, will sit here and say, oh, the Woods were not as vicious as you fucking say they are, gun. They like to sex play. They like to do this. They like to do it, Charlie. Okay? Everybody back in them days, the politics was different. It was much different. It was more free. You were able to roam more free. You were able to fraternize a little bit more with different group factions and things of that nature. Whereas nowadays, it's more political, more rigid, and everyone's down your fucking side of the yada. And in that fashion, hey, hey, I hear you guys over there bumping fucking Too Short. Man, fuck Too Short. Stay over there with Too Short. Puto. This is how it is. Everyone's going to do their own thing. The brand is controlling. Okay, a lot of them were slammed back in the shoes, back in the oils, way back in the 70s and late 80s. Whereas they were doing a little too much and administration started to recognize them. They started to recognize them by their symbolizations of their tattoos, which I'm not going to speak on here because that's none of my business. We all should know. And if you don't, look it up. That's on YouTube. They have different symbolizations and they started to be noticed because they were making a lot of noise. I think when they really started to establish themselves and make noises, when they got clicked up and formed an alliance with the Mexican Mafia and started to hit vatos side by side because they had a common enemy, a few common enemies. And that's when, like I said, the tenaciousness and the viciousness really was seen. It was noticed, and the brand has been doing their thing. Now, there has been a lot of splinter groups. You know, you had the Nazi lowriders who came in for a while. They were established in the California Youth Authority. They came into prison. They were running wild in the 80s and 90s, and they started to go at it with the brand. There was even an organization or a subset of the Nazi lowriders that had a very disrespectful, derogatory term towards the brand that I'm not going to say here in public. But that was how they felt. And of course, most of them vatos were eradicated, if not by the brand, but by their own. You know, there's a lot of characters, a lot of historic figures, man, that come from the Aryan Brotherhood. You know, they're well respected. They're on movies. They're in magazines. Sasuke, you see them posing like this in GQ. Like, what's up, bitch? Right? They're doing their thing. At the end of the day, man, they're about their people. Just like I said with the Black Guerrilla family. That's what most of these organizations are about, first and foremost. Their gente, their manpower, their soldados, their people. And the brand is no difference. Of course, they push that political, racial agenda. That's just something that came along the lines, man. If it ain't white, it ain't right. Mighty white are you, brother? Anyways, the Aryan Brotherhood, man, I can go into details, and I will on future spills, but as I'm saying, these are the top 5 prison gangs, prison organizations in the California Department of Corrections. Coming in at 3, you already know what it be like, man. The Nuestra Familia, right? La Nuestra Familia, man. Everybody knows their history. Everybody knows how they were started by vatos from down south that didn't want to take into the MS. We're going to turn it on them, right? They turned it on them. They decided not to take in. Of course, on that September 16th fateful day, it cracked off on the yarda. Not the norteños, despensan la tira. The NF felt like for no other reason, man, they were feeling played. They were feeling disrespected by the Mexican Mafia. And so they decided to get off. And there was casualties on both sides. A lot of bodies dropped. It was an ongoing war for 50 plus years until this recent end of hostilities about 8 or 9 years ago that was implemented by all these different organizations. And we're going to get to that here in a minute. But the Nuestra Familia, dangerous. A very dangerous group that was organized crime at its best, right? They were established because they didn't want to see gente oppressed. They just weren't feeling the estilo of the Mexican Mafia. Not saying that the Mexican Mafia was disrespecting or oppressing anyone, because I fucking wasn't on the yard to tell you if they were or not. So they didn't take my chonies or my zapatos, right? I'm good to go. But at the same time, I'm not saying they couldn't, right? They might say, give me your shoes, gun. But why? And in that fashion, fuck, right? It could have been went down, but it didn't. Gracias. On we go. Nuestra Familia, though, very established, so many different figures, all the way from the forefathers. We're talking about Bobble, Death Row Joe. We're talking about fucking Black Jess. We're talking about Black Bob, Brown Bob. So many, even up until now, man, with all these guys that are in the feds and still doing their thing, you know, a lot of respect is given to them because these guys are individuals, man, that are about their business. They're real gangsters, you know. They're really about that G shit, that G life. Like I said, everything is always established for the safety and security of the people, for the social status of equality. Not because they want to do anything more than the next group. They just want theirs too. So it gets a big yarda. Can we have our bars, puto? So we're not going to give you the bars. Sas! Okay, you can have ours too. This is how it goes down, man. And there's been a dangerous war that has went on for several decades over those fucking bars, over being able to get your packages and get in that linea, over being able to go to a yard and be comfortable with your own gente and your own people. Now, of course, there's been subsets or different groups that came from the Nuestra Familia, but it all bloomed from that flower. That was the original flower when it comes to up north. Of course, they gravitated towards Vatos up north eventually and started pulling their soldados and their manpower, known as Norteños, from Northern California, which is basically Delano on up, right? Now, of course, there's a lot of Sureño establishments, and we're going to get to them here in a minute. There's a lot of Sureño establishments all throughout Northern California, right? But the majority are Norteños, soldados, Norteños, that are the manpower for the NF, and they're at the dictation, the behest of the NF. It's not that they're getting punked. It's not that they're getting told what to do. It's nothing like that, man. It's that the Vatos respect the establishment, respect the organization, and respect what these Vatos have paved the way for, and they're doing their thug thizzle. And that's just the way it is. Bang, bang. And in that fashion. Okay? I can sit here and go into the NF fucking 10 times all day long, but check it out. At the end of the day, man, we all know what it is. Nuestra Familia has plenty of bodies, plenty of fucking respect, and they're doing their thing. They are in almost every yard in the California Department of Corrections. What yards they are not in, believe there's a couple of them back in there in the oil. There are yards that Norteños would get taken off on site because they are the minority and always have been. But guess what? With being the minority breeds hate, breeds envy, breeds viciousness and tenaciousness. And these Vatos are down with that indubitably. So Nuestra Familia comes in. You already know that group organization. Probably the most militant of all groups. They were the first ones to implement Máquina. They were the first ones to implement group workouts, things of that nature. I know a lot of other different groups are going to be like, Chale, hold up. Pump your brakes, puto. It was at that point right there when you said that, Gun, I knew you were lying. Nope, Gun ain't lying, man. That's what it is. It's a well-known fact. They were the first ones to establish group fucking workouts, and then eventually everyone came into the fold and started to do their thing too. I'm not saying they did it better than anyone else. I'm not saying they continue to do it better than anyone else, but anybody that's ever been in prison alongside Norteños or La Nuestra Familia will tell you, period, plain and simple, the Vatos are very quiet, very about their business, and very vicious, and you don't step on their toes, homes, because they'll step on your nose, and that's just what it is. Bang, bang, menudo, pozole, whatever the fuck you want to call it, and in that fashion, it was cold that night. Coming in at number 2, man, we're going to talk about a group right now it's basically slept on, man. It's basically slept on, and not a lot of people talk about it, man. We're going to talk about La Nuestra Raza, right? The NR, which I was a member of for a few years, okay? Being an soldado, basically, a Norteño soldado for the Nuestra Raza, you got to understand that this is a subset, or basically was started by the NF to maintain the yards because they were all slammed back in the oils in the 80s. Okay, administration fucking started to validate people, take them off the yard as NF members, and these Vatos were not able to establish and control certain yards without being there. Now, of course, hey, that they were so lame, they paid for the game. I ran it all from the oil. Vatos do continue to run it from the oil, but at the same time, ain't nothing like being right there and seeing what you're going to get. You can order anything on Amazon, homes, but say, hey, I didn't know they had 3 holes to put your legs in. That's one for your pipa, puto. You didn't know that? It's better to buy your shit and to be able to fold it and try it on, right? They weren't able to try shit on because they were slammed back in these oils, not because they wanted to be back there, but because the administration was holding them hostage and captive. They were prisoners of war. So they're back there doing decades slammed down in the back of these shoes in the oils. And so they needed some people that they could rely on. Some sympathizers that were fucking there, but not quite there in the organization, but damn near close. It's like $1 food stamp. You could buy fucking food with it, homes, just not warmed up. You know what it is. Anyways, Nuestra Raza, man, soldados. Vatos that their whole ways of thinking are the 14 bonds, man. If you go by these bonds that are established by the Norteño cause, then you will understand and know, right, what exactly you're supposed to do. These are the rules and regulations for every Norteño soldado. Everyone must maintain that social status of equality, that strive for improvement, that strive for education, that strive to better yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally, vato. You know what I mean? To do your thing. This is what they were doing on the yardas. They were establishing, and not only that, they started to get out on the streets and also establish regiments. We're not going to get into that today, but things were happening on the calles. It's all about money and a damn thing funny. You know what I mean? You got to go out there and get that milk and honey. Vatos were doing that, continue to do that. It's their business. We're not going to speak on it. But the Nuestra Raza is very known for being a dangerous group. Okay, at one point in time, I will say we because we were fucking doing it, got so deep, and this is prior to me being pulled, got so deep that it was disbanded by the NF because the Nuestra Raza, there were some rogue bandidos that started to believe that they were going to do their own thing. Because they were their own organization, they were of equal stature to the NF. Now, everybody knows, myself included, that ain't going to fucking happen, period. Just ain't going to happen, man. Was never going to happen. The NF nipped that in the bud, said, Charlie Holmes, you guys are disbanded. Go fucking play somewhere else. They didn't hate on the homeboys. They didn't hate on the gente. They just told the gente that was not going to happen. There was only one true organization, and you were either going to be within the fold, in the umbrella, and fucking conform, or like I say, get performed on. You can hammer dance, or you can fucking hammer dance. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. Either way, take off those fucking parachute pants. You know what I mean? And that funny ass haircut with líneas in it. So trip out. Nuestra Raza, very well known, disbanded. Of course, there still are soldados still doing their things, and these are the closest sympathizers to the NF. They are the ones that are out there maintaining the manpower, which are the norteños, making sure that the soldados are there on them yards, they're safe and secure, and they have a yard to go to. That is their true meaning. Their true meaning is the cause and the struggle. The struggle being, you have to struggle every day for that cause. You have to go out there and be a true believer and know that in your heart, this is your people. These are the ones that you're there to rely on. These people rely on you. You were there to give them clecha, be a maestro, and give them the game so that way they're all on the same level and everybody is running in branching union. That's what it is. Anyways, on we go to the next one. Number one. Or is it number two? I can't call it like an alcoholic. The Mexican Mafia. Oh no, he did it. Yeah, I said it. La M. The Mexican Mafia. No disrespect. I'm not disrespecting anyone here. Sabes que? Much respect to the South, and I will say this. These vatos, Folsom belong to us, right? The Mexican Mafia, without too many words being said, is one of the most notorious, if not the most notorious group of all time. They are the most well-known. They are the deepest. They are vicious, bro. Bar none, by far, they were started by Mexicanos that felt oppressed in prison by other group factions. We're talking about whites and blacks way before Aryan Brotherhoods and way before Black Guerrilla family things were established. We're talking about vatos that were on a free-for-all, and there wasn't a lot of Mexicanos in prison, man. And the Mexicanos that were in prison were getting advantage taken of them, beaten up, things taken from their lockers, things of that nature. So this group got together, not clandestine, homes. They just got together out on the front street and said, "Sabes que, watch out, Mexican Mafia on ours, homes." And decided to go that route. Now, somewhere along the line, some of the vatos thought that mafia word was a little too closely affiliated with La Cosa Nostra, the Italian mafia, and they didn't want no part of that. So what they did decide to do was drop that and just become La M. Of course, a lot of people still refer to it by its original name, the Mexican Mafia. I myself call it what it is, man. It's a juggernaut. It's basically an enterprise. It's a group not to be fucked with or taken lightly, not to be disrespected or played with, okay? A lot of things I can't speak on, just like I won't speak on with the NF. There's a lot of fucking intricacies that I can't go into detail on just based on I respect these organizations too much to put that out there. And Sasuke, I like my head right here. See, Sasuke, look, I can swivel it. I like that. You know what I mean? I'm active in a punch and fuck that. I'm trying to chill. You know, let's chill, like Guy said. But the Mexican Mafia, very well established, man, back in the early 60s. And then, of course, the most bitter rivals being the Black Guerrilla family and the Nuestra Familia, okay? They have a very close affiliation and an alliance with the Aryan Brotherhood. Now, I don't know how good or how bad that is nowadays because I've actually been on yards where the Woods, at the dictation of the AB, we're getting off with Sureños, which are the manpower for the Mexican Mafia. Now, with this end to hostilities going down and vatos all on the same yardas together, some real heavy hitters, some well-established, some vatos that got pulled and that are married to the game, I'm sure that they've all talked amongst each other, all these different group organizations, and things are all rolling, and I see them rolling. No one's hating, right? They're getting their motherfucking, they're riding dirty. They're doing their thing. At the same time, a lot of people fear the Mexican Mafia, and I'm going to tell you why they do. Because they deserve it. They're established. They got several killings under their belt. They're an organization that is well known, but doesn't exist. Okay, if you catch my meaning. Meaning everybody knows who they are, but don't no one know who they are. You know what I mean? You don't want to know who they are, because when you start knowing who they are, then they come knocking at your door. That's what you don't want. You don't want that shit. Period, plain and simple. Anyways, but they are a very well-known group in the California Department of Corrections, and of course they have spread throughout the federal system. They have spread in different states, these motherfuckers are in different countries, chilling, co-chilling, doing their thing. Like I said, businessmen and organization, your next door neighbor could be part of them and you wouldn't even know it, and he won't tell you. You know, you won't feel it till it's fucking sinking in. That's just how it is with the business, very much so. Anyways, they're one of the top groups, and I'm not going to go into the details because I'm going to break all these different groups down individually in their own spill because they righteously deserve it, respectfully. But they are part of that top 5, no doubt about it. Now, I'm going to talk about a couple other little groups, man, that I didn't really mention, but they've been doing their thing. And one of them is the Texas Syndicate, TS. And I remember, man, my father telling me stories about Texas Syndicate, going to prison, you know, in the 70s and the 80s. My dad would get out. He would go in and out, in and out. I remember we'd go visit him in Tehachapi, Vacaville, things of that nature. Wherever he was, my mom would go for the trailer visits. I'd be right there playing, you know, Mom, I'm all sad. What do I got? I was watching Rocky 3. Dun, 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 dun. And I was wondering why I kept hearing boom, boom, boom on the fucking wall. Well, now I know. We were at a trailer visit, just chilling, man. I was just eating my bowl of spaghetti, watching fucking Thunder Lips and fucking Rocky go at it. And they were going at it, and they're doing their thing. My parents were enjoying their best life. But my dad used to tell me about the Texas Syndicate. You know, he did not necessarily run with the Texas Syndicate, but he had a lot of friends that did. My dad was just a straight cholo out of south side of Modesto, not a norteño, not an NF member, nothing of that. But he affiliated closely with a lot of authors from the Texas Syndicate, who were deep at that point in time in California. Texas being pretty close to California, a lot of inmates from Texas were sent to California and did establish a nice little pocket of Texas Syndicate, TS, and they're a very dangerous group. I remember this was one of the first organizations I had ever heard about as a youngster, because I would hear my dad talking about just how dangerous they are and how they were his homeboys and how they were going to do this and do that, like this and like that. And I didn't pay too much attention because I was more worried about fucking shooting fucking ducks on duck hunt. But at the same time, I did listen closely because it would affect me later on in life. You know, at least gave me a fucking game on who's what and who's who. But the Texas Syndicate is a very well organized group, kind of like the Black Guerrilla family, where they're not as deep in California anymore. They're very clandestine, kind of falling off, but believe they are lurking and not twerking. They're doing their motherfucking thing, putting in that working and steady lurking. Doing their issue. Texas Syndicate, you got to give them the respect. I'm just giving them props in the California Department of Corrections. They have been doing their thing. Now, another group that I will give a lot of respect to, plain and simple period, are the other car. The others. You got to give the others their respect, being Usos, Polynesians, Tongans, things of that nature. You got to give them the respect. They've been doing their thing. Spencer, my phone's ringing. You know, people off the hook. Got to give them the respect. They've been doing their thing. The Asians, the Polynesians, the Tongans, the Samoans, the Usos, Soleil. Nothing but love and respect. Very dangerous group, man. If you don't step on their toes, they won't step on your nose. They're going to keep doing their thing. And that's just how it is on the yard. Everyone knows they're very cool people. Some of the most respectful people, but some of the most dangerous at the same time. Anyways, that's my fucking top 5 plus some. I don't know how many I talked about, but it was a lot. Anyways, I hope that you move fast with a purpose. I hope that you get everything that you want coming to you. Remember, at the end of the day, man, it's all about struggling for your gente, your people, your familia. No one else is going to look out for them but yourself. Just remember that holiday season is coming. Reach out and touch someone. Hook somebody up, man. You see someone out there on the street struggling, look out for them. You never know how it comes back tenfold. Bang, bang, the gun.